This is David Dubal. I am privileged to have as my guest tonight Joseph W. Polisi, president of New York's celebrated Juilliard School. Mr. Polisi has a tremendous breadth of education. Being educated at Yale University, he received an M.A. in International Relations. He also graduated from Tufts at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. As a musician, Polisi has studied at the National Conservatory of Paris. He has been Dean of Faculty at the Manhattan School of Music, an executive officer at the Yale University of Music, as well as Dean of the College Conservatory of Music, University of Cincinnati. Joseph Polisi, the artist, is a bassoonist, and he has appeared extensively in solo and chamber bassoon performances throughout the United States. He has contributed many articles on the subject as well. Joe, I could go on all day with the various credits, but I want to welcome you to WNCN.
Happy to be here, David.
Well, tonight we're not going to speak about Juilliard as much as you are now used to do. You are not only the president of this incredible institution, but the chief spokesman. And we are not going to talk, well, we will a little, Joe, but because it's an irresistible subject, of course, Juilliard. But we're going to talk about you, the bassoon, your performances on it, as well as some of the music that we're going to bring to our audience tonight. So we have some interesting composers that I don't know, one by the name of David Noon, and we have, of course, Carl Maria von Weber, his 200th birthday we were discussing, and this is your tribute to Weber's birthday. And
yes.
The first question is, the bassoon must be in your blood, or at least in your genes, because your father was a very well-known bassoon player, too.
Yes, my father, William Polisi, was with the New York Philharmonic and with the NBC Symphony before that, and with the Cleveland Orchestra. He really was one of the major bassoonists of this century, and he was my teacher also. He was my first teacher.
So you truly come by it naturally. This was this is your first musical experience, the sound probably of that instrument.
Yes, exactly. I can recall my father practicing the beginning of the Rite of Spring or the last movement of the Beethoven Fourth Symphony for hours on end, and it really did stick with me. And the first time I had an opportunity to play those works, they were familiar.
Mm-hmm. For you, it was not the piano or the violin, that's for sure. It's so refreshing, you know.
Well, I did have to play piano. My father started me in piano before I started bassoon.
I see. Well, tell me, what was the first performance you ever had on this instrument? You remember? That's a hard question.
It is a hard question, but I was going to be a cellist, actually, in 7th grade. I grew up here in New York City, and there was a good school music program, and I chose to play the cello, but the music teacher found out that my father was a bassoonist in the Philharmonic at the time, and he needed a bassoonist. Mm-hmm. So I started playing and studying with my father in 7th grade, and I suppose it must have been with the Junior High School 189 school orchestra at some time.
I guess that would be it. Now, was there any kind of hardship with your father being a celebrated bassoonist, and here you are now playing this instrument? Did you ever feel that he was too hard on you, or that you were competitive, or he was, or that you felt that you weren't as talented as him? All these complexities. No,
actually, it was a wonderful, warm, and artistic and parental father-son relationship. There was never any sense of competition. He was an extremely patient teacher. He was always able to give me solid advice, I felt, and was not too kind to me, but not too severe either. And he was just a type of man who really was dedicated to the instrument and was, I think, pleased in the final analysis that I began to play it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an instrument that you love because you mentioned the bassoon, and you know, I don't know if you know it, Joe, but there is a gleam instantly in your eye when you say the bassoon.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's something that you definitely love.
Well, it's a misunderstood instrument even today in the late 20th century because most people don't understand that it can be a very expressive and solo instrument, and it was written for many centuries. And in fact, I would say that the bassoon is really enjoying a type of golden age of compositions for it in chamber and solo settings.
Well, in a sense, you have just led us right into the possibility of hearing you play the bassoon, because we're going to hear a work by a 20th century composer. And as you say, the 20th century definitely has seen instruments like the bassoon in a whole new attitude and light, and they've extended the resources of the instrument in many ways. And we're going to listen to a part of a work that you've recorded on Crystal Records by a composer, David Noon. Tell me a little of this piece, Joseph.
Well, this is a piece that David Noon wrote for me in 1972 called Motets and Monodies, and it is a work composed of motets for bassoon, oboe, and English horn, as well as monodies, or single-line works for all of the three instruments. And the piece can be played in 4 different configurations, and what we'll be hearing now is 2 of the bassoon monodies and 1 of the motets.
Well, we are going to hear that, and the artists with you, Ronald Roseman and John Snow, English horn. Joseph Polisi, bassoonist. David Noon's Monody 1, Motet 1, and Monody 2. We have just heard David Noon, composer born in 1946, and the work Monody 1, Motet 1, and Monody 2 from a larger work. And we also heard in this performance Roseman on the oboe and Snow English horn, the bassoonist, my guest, Joseph Polisi. Well, we're going to hear a work now. It's called Concertino. It's 7 minutes and 26 seconds. And the composer is Marcel Bitsch. Tell me about this man. I don't know him either.
Marcel Bitsch is a French composer of this century, and the Concertino is a very typical concours piece for the French Conservatory that really started in the early 1900s, in which each instrument was required to play what is called a morceau imposé, a piece that is demanded of all the students to play in order to graduate. And the nature of this work is distinctive in the sense that it has certain academic parameters, because there's always a slow section in these concours pieces. There's always a highly technical passages, and then there's usually a cadenza someplace in it. And then, of course, there's always the highest note on the instrument, the high E, that always shows up in these bassoon concours pieces. But I think the piece transcends its academic roots and is a beautiful work.
So there are competitions really for not only piano or violin, for every instrument.
Yes.
Now, you studied in France. Did you actually enter a competition?
Well, in some ways, the bassoon class at the Paris Conservatory was a weekly competition. It was a public master class with Maurice Allard, who was a brilliant bassoonist and teacher, and we all had to play the same piece, often for invited guests, and we were always ranked once a month.
Always ranked.
Yes, it was. I think it was a very wonderful openness, a freshness about evaluation, and once one got past the nervousness and playing for your peers, you learned an enormous amount in that way.
It sounds
I
wonderful.
Felt,
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful
Nothing was
process.
closed in.
Yeah.
It was always open to the.
So he was
everyone.
quite a teacher then.
A brilliant teacher. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's hear. Thomas Schmidt is the pianist in this performance. My guest is Joseph Polisi. You will be hearing him play the bassoon in this Concertino for bassoon by Marcel Bitsch. A marvelous work by Marcel Bitsch, Concertino for bassoon, and it was played by Joseph Polisi, bassoonist. Right after this message, we will continue our program and talk more about the bassoon, about Juilliard, about life, and about anything grand we can think of with my guest, the president of the Juilliard School, Joseph Polisi. This is David Dubal, and I've been speaking to Joseph Polisi. Tonight we're not talking about Juilliard quite as much as he's used to, although, of course, we bring it in. We're talking about the bassoon, and we just heard a marvelous, very French piece by Bitsch. Not our Mrs. H.H.A. Bitsch, but B-I-T-S-C-H, and I know that many of you will want to buy the recording. It's on Crystal Records. It's the recital series. It's S341. It's called A Harvest of 20th Century Bassoon Music, Joseph Polisi, the bassoonist.
Well, you know, the French have an an extraordinary tradition of bassoon playing, in fact,
Yeah.
that dates back to the Baroque time. And in fact, there is a separate type of instrument called the French bassoon, or the French system bassoon. And the world is divided into German system bassoonists and French system bassoonists. And quite honestly, the vast majority of the bassoonists in the world today play the German or Heckel system bassoon. But there's a very wonderful and strong school still in existence in France, which plays a different system, a different type of instrument, in fact, different keys, different fingerings, different wood. And I think it's all of that, all of these factors, the different instrument and the tradition of French composition, that give the inherent Gaelic flavor that I think you heard.
Yes. That's right, wood. What about American bassoon building? Is there such a thing?
Oh, yes, very much so. In fact, when my father was still alive, there was a Polisi bassoon, which he designed, and there are other fine bassoons being made by Fox, for example, in Indiana, and the wood is available here. What is not yet in existence, perhaps, is this centuries of tradition, which are involved in all types of instrument making. But the raw materials are here.
Now, a musical child, would you recommend parents telling their child that the bassoon may be the great instrument for them, or are there too many bassoonists in the world? I don't know. It's a tough
Since
one.
you're asking a bassoonist, there are more bassoonists, more professional bassoonists, more individuals who are capable of having a professional life in orchestras, for example, out there than there are positions. Yes, I mean, the stories that one hears of 120 applicants for one position in a major symphony, in bassoon, for example, are true.
Yeah.
But like any other musical instrument, I think each individual has to follow their own path. And for me, of course, it was a very natural path. And for others, whether they're introduced to the instrument through school or through interested in listening to records, it's hard to determine. But I do feel that each individual who's interested in playing a musical instrument is either suited for the instrument physically, mentally, or not. And we know this across the board, of course, in violin, piano, etc. And there are certainly individuals who are more physically suited for bassoons than others.
Now, I'll have to ask the most cruel question of all. Beside yourself as the world's greatest bassoon player, are there any others that equal you?
Well, I'm
or
certainly.
do you stand alone, since your father is not here now?
I certainly am not, by any stretch of the imagination, the world's greatest bassoon player.
Because it
close to that.
sounded
No,
from
there's-
this that
there's
you really are.
A wonderful group of, happily, many of them who are my friends, who are colleagues, who are just extraordinary. I suppose one finds them naturally as the bassoonists of the major orchestras, or all of the orchestras in the United States. We have a fantastic bassoon section at the New York Philharmonic, for example. Each individual in that section is a virtuoso in his or her own right.
Yes.
And that goes for practically every other major orchestra in the United States. It's a highly polished, sophisticated level of playing that one sees in bassoon playing today in the United States. And not to denigrate what happens around the world, but I do think that in terms of overall expertise and ability, one may look to the United States for some of the finer bassoonists who are now performing. Of course, some of the virtuosi who are not American are very well known and highly recorded, like Milan Turkovic, who's a fantastic bassoonist, and William Waterhouse from England, and of course Maurice Allard in France. So there's a wonderful group of fine colleagues. I have to say that bassoonists are a collegial bunch. We tend to enjoy being with each other, and perhaps because our repertoire is so small, we're not as competitive as some other instrumentalists.
Of course, it's small in the solo sense, but of course there's the orchestra. I mean,
Exactly,
God,
yes.
that is, and it's such a beautiful part of an orchestra. There are so many marvelous passages that listening to just randomly, just sitting in an orchestra, the bassoon comes out marvelously. It's an instrument that truly works.
It does. I remember a professor at Yale once telling me that the history of musical instruments was the story of the survival of the loudest. And actually within the orchestra, probably the bassoon is the softest instrument in terms of being able to penetrate this enormous mass of sound. Yet it does happen, and really it's a blending instrument as well as a solo voice within the core of winds.
Yes, it's a beautiful instrument. My guest is Joseph Polisi, and we're talking about the bassoon literature, which is really thriving in the 20th century. We're going to hear in your performance on Crystal Records of a Villa-Lobos work. It's 10 minutes and 12 seconds. And tell us a little bit about this. It's called what?
The Ciranda de sete notas is a work that was always fascinating for me because Villa-Lobos is such an eclectic composer. He's a combination of really French Impressionism and the Brazilian jungle. And one hears that, I think, in this work because there are many lyrical passages, but in the middle of the work is a section, sort of an ABA section, actually, in which in the B part of that section there is a growling jungle effect produced by the bassoon by having downward drops of more than an octave, which are very difficult to produce. But the point is that it's a sound that Villa-Lobos was able to capture that is rarely heard for the instrument. And I think once again this work, which is based on 7 notes, as the title indicates, and Ciranda was a Brazilian folk dance, that you'll hear those 7 notes and you'll see it in variation form, and then see the expressiveness at the end of what the instrument's potential.
And it's Villa-Lobos' 100th birthday, or just past. I think it's, let's see, on your notes, do we have anything here about when he was born?
Well, I know this work was written in 1931 or 33.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it says he was born in 1884. So
we're
just
a little bit beyond.
Well, this is going to be a 2 anniversary program, more or less. More or less. The Weber will be the 200th birthday of Weber, and that will follow the Villa-Lobos. And let's hear, the pianist is Thomas Schmidt, and we're going to hear the Heitor Villa-Lobos Ciranda das sete notas, the bassoonist, Joseph Polisi. very beautiful piece, a serious addition to the bassoon literature by Villa-Lobos. Ciranda, sete notas. How did I do? The artist, Joseph Polisi, bassoon, and at the piano, Thomas Schmidt. We'll be right back after these messages, and we'll continue talking with Joseph Polisi. This is David Dubal returning, and my guest is Joseph Polisi. We have had Noon, Beach, Villa-Lobos, and we will, after some more talk, we'll discuss a little bit about that incredible man by the name of Karl Maria von Weber, who only lived till 40 years old. It's incredible. What a busy life. Well, I'm going to ask you one difficult question about the arts, and it just hit me while we were listening. There's 1,400 works by Villa-Lobos. I mean, just to assess this composer, he's 100 years old now, will take a long time because audiences are not, instantly ready to hear contemporary music. And this is a pity, but in the arts today, I was reading this interview with Bill Moyers with George Steiner, literary critic and an extraordinary man, one of the finest minds in the world today. And he was saying that the calendar of the sciences is a bright one now, but the calendar of the arts is a dark one. And here you are administrating the most celebrated, the most famous, and in my opinion, the greatest school of music in the world, the Juilliard. Of course, it's not only a music school, it's not called the Juilliard School of Music anymore, it's the Juilliard School. And all of these people are going to go out into a world. Is it a dark world?
I think today we tend, and I'm not saying that the author of this article was thinking this way, but I think we tend to look at everything in economic terms. Success or failure is rarely not measured in anything but economic terms. And so if one looks at the arts, I suppose you could say that it's very difficult to make a living for most people, which it's true. And perhaps the audiences are getting bigger, but not in relation to the overall population. And perhaps popular music is completely overtaking what we call serious music or high art or whatever, or classical music, whatever the appropriate correct term is. However, I think if we were to step back from this period in history and look at it objectively, I cannot think of a more vibrant musical time in the history of mankind than what we're experiencing now. It's not only in New York City, but around the United States and, of course, around the world. And we tend to forget in our busy lives not only the economic aspects that are influencing us, but also the fact that art really does have a civilizing influence on each of us as an individual and collectively as a society. That it's through visual arts, through dance, through drama, through music that we really begin to enrich ourselves and permit ourselves to go beyond the workaday world. And this is happening now. Perhaps it's not happening to the degree that some of us would like, the percentage of our population, but I doubt if there's any other period, as I said, in history where it was enormously greater. So I think that in summary, the arts are not at all in a dark period, but rather in a vibrant and an important time. But it is important that people like you and me, David, talk continually about the importance of the arts in our society and in our culture. If we stop doing that, then and give in to the concept of darkness, then perhaps one day it will be a little bit more shadowy than we'd like.
Yes, and I asked you that question because I felt that you would be optimistic about it, because I am also. I think that, well, just look at this. Can you imagine 40 years ago a recording of bassoon music? We have a whole new distribution of music. Music now is alive as never before. There are more opportunities. If in the so-called golden age of pianists there were 20 of these great names, which everyone still talks about, making a living, there are 50 to 100 making, an extraordinary amount of money if we have to base it on economics. I don't, of course. There are so many ways really of surviving in music, and
sure.
And I think people will if they want to. because the opportunities are here. We have, of course, Asia's opening up to classical music. We have a whole new world. 25, 30 years ago, people said, well, what's going to happen to the piano? Look at Juilliard itself. It's been enriched by many cultures now.
Yes. Well,
Not
actually,
just people born in Odessa.
no, not at all, as a matter of fact. Of course, people are asking that same question exactly today about what's going to happen to the piano with synthesized sound and sound sampling. And once again, the issue comes up of are acoustical instruments valid expressions of human thought?
Well, there's going to be, you see, room for everything.
Sure, there will be.
And obviously we will probably be traveling to hundreds of planets, and Beethoven's Ninth will be heard throughout the cosmos, in a interplanetary orchestra of, beings from thousands of planets, no doubt. Now we move to Weber. That poor fellow, he was just born a little too early to be a full-fledged romantic, and he certainly wanted to be, and he certainly invented a German romantic opera.
Oh, of course.
In Freischütz, and he the prototype of the romantic piano concerto. He wrote for the bassoon, the clarinet, quite marvelously. And you have a work here which is, well, it has survived beautifully. It's called the Andante, and what is it, the actual Hungarian?
Hungarian Rondo. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason it's Hungarian Rondo is that the theme is a Hungarian folk theme,
Mm-hmm.
and this work is also known in a version for viola.
Mm-hmm.
I think, quite honestly, I'm a little prejudiced, but I think it works better on bassoon because of the, especially the staccato passages at the end of the work. It seems to be a little bit brighter for a wind instrument than for a string instrument.
Mm-hmm. Well, Weber was really the hero of the day. He died in 1826. He was only 40 years old. He had a limp, a Byronic limp. He couldn't practically talk because early in his life he had swallowed an acid that almost ruined his vocal cords. So he had a certain romantic pallor about him. He died early, and he composed music that Mendelssohn, of course, loved, and Oberon was his last work, and it certainly is the dawning of Romanticism in so many ways. Let's hear your performance, Joseph Polisi, of the Hungarian Andante and Rondo. Who was the pianist in this performance?
This is Thomas Schmidt again.
Thomas Schmidt is the pianist, Joseph Polisi, the bassoonist. What a finale to our program. The Andante Hungarian Rondo by Carl Maria von Weber, the artist Joseph Polisi, bassoon, and Thomas Schmidt at the piano. Joe, we have looked a little bit then at this performance, which was not on your recording, as well as a harvest of 20th century bassoon music, which is an absolute delightful crystal album. It's S341 in case anyone wants to buy it. I know that we will have calls galore on this, and probably you will have 7 to 1,000 new applicants at Juilliard for the bassoon in the next year.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be here.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Joe. This is David Dubal. Thank you for listening.